Welcome to the Foothills of the Smokies podcast, brought to you today by the Old Mill. Our historic grist mill, in continual operation since 1830, is the cornerstone of our spot right here in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, in the foothills of the Great Smoky Mountains. We've been welcoming families for decades, and now we invite you to join us as we tell the stories of not only the people and what they do here at the Old Mill, but of folks from all across our beautiful region here in the South. I'm your host, Jimmy Prophet, and this is Foothills of the Smokies. In anticipation of launching Foothills of the Smokies, we sat down with Keener Shanton, head distiller at Old Forge Distillery. This episode was recorded a little over a year ago, proof that some things take time and some things age beautifully. When it comes to making spirits, both can be true. You'll hear us talk about Old Forge's 10th anniversary during the conversation. That milestone has since been celebrated, and we're looking ahead to many more to come. I'm Jimmy, host for the Old Mill, and today I'm in the Old Forge Distillery with Keener Shanton. Keener, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to Old Forge.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to be here and good to have you. So tell everybody who you are and what it is that you do. Why are we talking to you today?
Did you not just do that?
A little bit.
I'm Keener Shanton, and I'm the head distiller here at Old Forge Distillery.
Okay, so what does that mean?
That means...
What does the head distiller do?
Gosh, you would think I drink a lot. I don't necessarily. We figured out pretty early that consumption during the day...
You have to taste a little bit, right?
You got to taste it, okay. Tasting. There's a gray area in there. How much tasting? But yeah, so everything from recipe development to production, processing, bottling, labeling, marketing,
and all of that's
recipe formulation with the federal government.
Oh.
Everything that you can imagine from spirits production.
So, and all that's done right here in this building, right?
Right here.
All under one roof.
That's right. Same farm supply store.
Yeah.
We're actually, as a matter of fact, we're and I don't know what if your guests or viewers know, but we're at a 4,000 square foot, 100-year-old farm supply store. 1,200 square feet of that is dedicated to production. So everything we just talked about that gets done here on the production front is done in 1,200 square feet.
Wow.
We do have a lot of storage off-site, barrels, bulk storage, raw materials, finished goods, but
the actual production
this is where it's done.
So everything happens right here under one roof, from squeezing the corn to getting it in the jar.
That's right. Yeah, like I said, before, we do have some off-site storage, a little bit of off-site processing, but that actually just began March of 23. Before that, every single thing that we did was done here from start to finish.
And that's just because of growth that you had to find some.
It's a good problem.
Some more
it's a little bittersweet. Yeah, it's a little bittersweet to take some of that processing off-site, but it's either that or we'll strangle it.
Because you weren't just to the walls, you were the property line too. So it's not like you could just...
the walls. We're going to strangle our production or strangle each other.
Yeah.
We didn't want that.
So you mentioned there's a little bit of history in this building. So what else besides a farm supply store has happened in this building right here?
You're probably the better man to answer that question.
Well,
but I know that there has been some retail here before.
Yeah.
But our story starts about almost 10 years ago. That's when I stopped logging history.
I heard it was a coffin company at one time. They made coffins in here.
Coffins.
Coffins.
Boxes.
Yeah, boxes.
Okay,
wooden boxes.
Coffin. Yeah. What? Yeah, that's interesting. Coffin-shaped bottle of alcohol.
Yeah, that's right.
Glad you brought that up. We'll talk
maybe
later.
with a triple X on it.
Right. Yeah, we don't want to.
Might be appropriate.
Right. Yeah, we don't want to bog down your podcast with that, but let's talk about it later.
And I heard that the miller for the previous owners of the mill lived in here for a while.
Did he?
Yeah, he hung out in here.
That makes two of us.
Yeah.
I lived in here for about the first year or two that we were open.
No doubt.
At a cot, yeah. So, yeah.
So you've been here how long?
We're going to be celebrating 10 years, June 27th. And I've been here the entire time. And even a little before that, obviously, when we started getting equipment, scaling up recipes from the garage, maybe 6 months before that. So 10 years.
And what were you doing before 10 years ago?
Officially?
Yeah,
my job,
officially.
We'll
go with officially.
I was a fireman with the Sevierville Fire Department for about 6 or 7 years.
I always tell people, and you've heard me say it, that you went from putting water on the fire to putting fire in the water.
Yes.
And how did you start that process?
Man, Jimmy, I like drinking.
Yeah.
That's a pretty standard answer. No, that's honestly, I very much do enjoy a good experience when it comes to, alcohol consumption. And the schedule, I suppose, for the fire department was 24 hours on, 48 hours off. So every day I worked, I had a weekend. So what do you do on the weekends? Drink. You party. But it just afforded me the opportunity to explore some hobbies, and this was one that I really gravitated towards.
Because you're a bit of a scientist. Started playing with things, right?
That's a bit of an overstatement, but I guess, we could say that. Yeah, I started tinkering. I started screwing up.
Yeah.
You do that when in the beginning. You make some bad stuff that you dump out.
Yeah, you got to make a few mistakes before you get it right.
That's right. That's how you grow.
How'd you get here?
So, a couple of cousins of mine.
Yeah.
We know them as Laurie Faulkner, Chris Blanton, Craig Faulkner. They and Al Blanton.
Yeah.
Big name around here. I read in the newspaper from the fire department at breakfast that he had applied for a DSP, or distilled spirits plant permit.
Yeah.
And I text Laurie. I said, hey, you guys are opening a distillery.
Hey, cuz, what's going on?
Yeah, what's up? Been a minute.
Yeah, so the old mill itself is a family-owned, family-operated business,
right.
And this was just another branch in that family business tree.
We met and talked and discussed, and
did they know you had any interest in it before that?
I don't know if of course, I'd love to think that they knew.
Of course. They kept tabs on you all those years.
Yeah, sure. Right. Laurie hunted me down at summer camp.
Yeah.
When I was a kid. That's when she introduced me to Craig the first time. That was funny. She was a counselor. Anyway.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. We could talk about that as a different conversation. I hope nobody knew that this was going on in my garage.
Yeah.
Under the veil of secrecy. But it just worked out that it was a good fit, I think, for everybody involved. That, I got to scale up a hobby that I was doing because I enjoyed it.
Right.
And,
And as a hobby, it was perfectly fine, right?
Right.
So it really wasn't an issue.
Right.
But to open up a distillery, things had to change around here. So what happened a little more than 10 years ago?
So a little more than 10 years ago, this building, as we said, was 100 years old, in no shape to hold this equipment.
It was in no shape to hold anything.
It's my understanding, and this predates me, and I'm not a construction guru, but the footers actually had to be gone in and dug, and of course, the floor was once the ceiling, so that's been repurposed and turned into the floor. But there was a lot that had to be done to the building.
We're kind of fenced in back here a little bit. There was a big hole here. The floor was completely gone. It just had rotted away.
Right, yeah.
So,
from where we are all the way back,
Yeah, and, it was in pretty scary shape. What's this beautiful thing right here that we're seeing?
This is a collaboration between two still manufacturers, one in Kentucky and one in Alabama. It was the first one that they built like this, but this is our original production still.
Copper and wood.
Copper and
kind of
wood,
what you would expect.
Some stainless and, just all safe and necessary ingredients to make
so it's
potable,
a little more advanced than what you would have found out in the hills and hollers 100 years ago, right?
Yeah, most likely. I guess the professional level and maybe the backwoods level are pretty much the same.
Yeah.
You have to have a sugar source to ferment into alcohol, and then a still to separate the alcohol from the fermented mash.
Okay.
So you have to have a heater, basically. A water heater is kind of how this one's set up, but you heat the mash up, vaporize it into an alcohol vapor, and then a way to cool that vapor back down to a liquid. So it's like the water cycle,
Okay.
Evaporation and perspiration, and then it's a circle.
Okay.
But so that's really what you have to have. Now, when you come into our distillery, or really any other distillery that's doing this at this level, it looks a lot more complicated than that. And most of that it's just safety precautions.
Right.
Pop-off valves, pressure relief valves, vacuum brake valves, just things so that we're not sitting in a 4,000 square foot bomb, essentially.
Yeah. So this is a 100-gallon.
It's a 100-gallon copper pot. Yeah, it is.
And so it's heated up right now. I can feel a little bit of heat coming
Yes,
off
it
of
is. You should.
I can hear something pouring off behind me here.
That's
but
right.
It goes up, hits those coils.
People expect
coils
to see a coil on a moonshine still, that's for sure.
And then it starts coming back down. So what am I hearing behind me?
You're hearing the hearts fraction, or the hearts section of a bourbon mash that we're distilling today.
Okay, so hearts. What does that mean?
Right. So we have
I've heard you say hearts, heads, and tails, and it sounds like my Appalachian garden plan that I know when to put the potatoes out. What are you talking about?
I'm sure there could be some parallels drawn there. Absolutely. So there's good stuff,
Yeah.
And then there's less good stuff.
Okay.
In pretty much everything in life, but alcohol is no different, and there's some byproducts created during fermentation that are solventy, as far as taste and smell. Actually, some acetone is created, and everybody knows acetone is, fingernail polish remover.
Yeah.
So there's that. There's some other big long names like ethyl acetate and acetaldehyde, and essentially they're just solventy.
Okay.
But they have lower boiling points than the ethanol that we're after as our Hearts collection. Ethanol being your intoxicant, and the same ethanol you pour in a car. So we're fueling our brains.
There you go.
Our souls. Yeah. But anyway, those heads components always boil first because the boiling temperature is lower. They always come off first, so they're the heads. And by taste and smell, more smell, like we already talked about that, you start tasting too early and too often, and you start partying in here.
Yeah.
And the work productivity plummets. But you can tell when those solventy notes are gone. Yields into more of a grainy smell and grainy flavor that is a little bit more reminiscent of the fermented mash that it came from. So for us today, corn. You start smelling corn. It's time to switch the container, move the heads container out of the way, and start collecting that Hearts cut. That'll go on for a few more hours. That rape right there just dripping out, it's coming out probably about 150 proof right now, pretty hot. That'll trail off as the Hearts continues to progress. At the end of the Hearts collection, we get the tails, and much the same as the determination is made with the heads. It's a taste and smell thing. It's an olfactory thing. You start smelling a little bit of wet cardboard maybe for grainy mashes. Wet dog, I like to describe it as.
Yeah.
That smell like a wet dog's paw, like Fritos. A little too corny.
A little too corny.
A little too corny, like my jokes. Start smelling like my dad jokes. It's time to switch to the tails container. So
you don't have a meter on here that's going to say, hey, it's flipped now. Hey, it's flipped
there's
now.
several ways that visual cues around here. We have a hydrometer floating in the parrot that lets us know the proof, and you can kind of predict when these compounds are coming over by the proof that's coming off the still. There's a lot of math and science that you can incorporate. So temperature also relates to the alcohol content in the pot, temperature of the vapor, the temperature of the distillate coming out. So there's a lot of factors, things you can plug in here and make it as complicated as you want. We typically rely on our beaks and our tongues right here to make those cuts.
Yeah.
But the heads and tails get combined. Those are kind of your byproducts, but there's a lot of good alcohol in there. So they get redistilled the next time we run that recipe. Some of those byproducts, these are detectable to us in parts per million or parts per billion. So this much of your heads fraction, which is the bad stuff, quote, really of that much is really bad. The rest is pretty good alcohol that you can harvest back. So increased yield is what you can expect from recycling the heads and tails. A lot of good flavor. Yeah, acetone may smell bad when you're taking the fingernail polish off of your fingers, but if you smear a teensy bit in that Hearts collection, you may get a fruity or a floral note.
Really?
So that's how you add character to your whiskey, and that's our job kind of as distillers, is how much of that heads fraction and how much of the tails fractions do you allow to smear into your Hearts, and that gives you your character. So a little bit of ethyl acetate gives you a green apple note, isoamyl acetate, banana, a little bit of wet dog, not too much, gives you a grainy note and can lengthen the palate a little bit. So that's kind of we're chasing that. We're after that, flavor, and depending on where it's going to go, is it going to go clear into a jar? We may tighten that cut up a little bit and make it a little more approachable. When I say tighten it up, I mean less heads, less tails, a little bit tighter cut on that Hearts, less character, because not everybody's after that in a white dog spirit. If we know we're going to go to a bourbon barrel, then maybe we'll fatten it up a little bit, make it a little dirtier, so that it stands up to that barrel over time. Creates a lot of good esters in there. So.
And I've heard the term angel share.
Yes, they're thirsty.
Okay.
They're thirsty angels. Yeah. So the angel share is it's just what happens when you put a barrel, which is porous. A white oak barrel is porous. It holds liquid, but over time, that expansion and contraction in and out of the wood, you do lose some to evaporation. But there's a lot of good that comes with evaporation. The alcohol vapor escapes the barrel, leaves a void space for oxygen to get back in. Oxygen helps oxidize some of the tannins that come out of the barrel. So there's a lot of good, just from, on a maturation discussion, there's a lot of wood influence that you're extracting from the wood into the alcohol, but that's only half of it. The time that it takes to age and the maturation that kind of coincides with the angel share. The more of the angel share that goes, the more oxygen gets in and the more oxidation that you can have, and it helps smooth out and esterify some of these acids and alcohols that are in the distillates.
So is moonshine an aged spirit?
Typically not.
Not?
No,
Okay.
moonshine, man, you wanted to get that made and get it out and get it sold before you got caught.
That's what I've heard.
It's typically an illegal
just
spirit.
An unaged spirit.
That's right. And in this area is no different.
So when you're talking aging, what do you get from that? What does that become when you age it?
This particular distillate, since it's coming out of here and it's close to us, we'll talk about that. I said it's a bourbon mash.
Okay.
It's also, if it's unaged, it can serve as our Rocky Top corn whiskey. We have an unaged corn product too that's another 100 proof moonshine. If we decide to go into a jar unaged, that's typically where this alcohol goes. If we do want to age it, it meets the qualifications for a bourbon or a Tennessee whiskey right out of the gate, the mash bill that we have, which is 80% corn next door. You have to be 51% corn to be a bourbon, blowing that out of the water. 83% corn, 8% rye, and 9% malted barley. So I holler at Chuck, have him grind it up. He grumbles around a little bit, gives me some crap.
Yeah.
I'm busy, Shanton. Do it anyway, Chuck.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're kind of getting off track here. But anyway, so it's a bourbon mash. So we meet the qualifications there. If you distill that, ferment and distill that mash under 160 proof, so that it maintains the flavor, aroma, and characteristics from that fermented mash, is TTB words there, and then age it in a new charred oak container at less than 125 proof, you can call it a bourbon.
Oh, okay.
And in our case, a Tennessee bourbon. Now, slow down there, Jimmy. After that distillation, before we hit the barrel with it, if we're going to do a Tennessee whiskey, it's got to go through what's called the Lincoln County process. And all that means is you have to do a sugar maple charcoal mellowing step. So you trickle it through, you're filtering that whiskey distillate through a sugar maple charcoal. It's cleaning it up a little bit. Some of these heavier, maybe more tailsy compounds that are big, little fattier, a little oilier, get caught up in that charcoal. It's really porous.
And that's simply charcoal made from a sugar maple tree.
Sugar maple tree.
Okay.
Yeah. And sugar maple charcoal, and then after it comes out the other end of that filter, then you can go into that new charred oak container again, less than 125 proof. And when
and
it's done aging,
containers being like a
wooden barrels,
wooden
man.
barrel. What's
Sorry,
that?
I say the word container. That's because
okay.
the federal government. But
so what is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
We want to make
got
sure the
rules.
federal government understands what we're saying.
And we are good stewards of the alcohol industry.
That's right. But so what is that barrel made of?
It's white oak, American white oak.
Okay.
For us to date. Now there's French oak, there's European oak, there's a lot of different ways to go about it, but really, essentially, oak is best suited for holding alcohol. There's a lot of history and probably some debate on why oak was chosen, when it was chosen, and how alcohol ended up in the thing to begin with, and we can talk about that later.
Where these trees come from are going to add something different to...
Sure, just like every raw ingredient,
Sure.
has a certain amount of terroir to it. A local corn or local malt, local rye tastes a little bit different than something that we might get from the Midwest. Trees are no different.
Yeah.
They're
a product of the environment.
We all are, Jimmy.
Yeah,
what dirt? From which dirt did you spring?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Chuck. So that's our miller.
Yeah.
At the old mill.
Yeah.
And so you just holler at Chuck, and he provides you with all the grains that you need.
That's it, man.
Yeah.
And he does it, and I'm sure you'll talk to him at some point, and you'll see the antique nature of that mill. It's still water powered. They've tweaked it a little bit. It's got a turbine at the bottom for a little bit more of a consistent operation. He can talk about that.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm talking about, but there's a lot of dates and names and history over there that you guys can elaborate on later. But for us, our story starts when it comes off those stones and they wheel it across, sometimes on an antique dolly.
I've talked to Chuck about that process before, and you all actually use some of the byproduct too. So you help take up some of the slack of things that he's not able to use.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So
and,
sustainability.
Yeah.
There's a huge story to be told there, and we're getting better at telling it. And that, yeah, you're right. So there's a byproduct of his grit making process that's just corn flour, white, yellow. We can use it. Flour is starch. Mm-hmm. You're a chef.
Yeah.
Flour is starch. Starch breaks down into sugar.
Yeah.
Yeast eats sugar and make alcohol, so it's a natural fit for us to. Before he sends that to a farmer, why don't you just send that over here, dude? I'll make something else out of it, and then we'll go to the farmer with the spent mash. So,
right. So the corn flour bean, when he grinds the grits, that's the dust that literally falls to the bottom of the grits machine as they're separating that out, and that's just a byproduct. He can bag it up, he uses it in a lot of mixes and things. It adds a little extra texture to a finer flour, so he wants to get that little bit of grit in there without having full-on cornmeal or grits in it. So it's great for that. But then it's still corn, and you're able to use that.
It's a fun little story to
make a product. And you mentioned the spent grains. So what is that?
Very briefly talked about the fermentation. So we're adding 300-gallon mash for us. This is our process. 500 pounds of number 2 yellow dent corn, same stuff they're using over here at the restaurants. 50 pounds of rye and 55 pounds of malted barley, and that goes in our cooker. That's about a 4.5 to 5 hour process of cooking the grain with some enzymes, water, heat, and that's converting the starch into sugar. Then it goes to fermentation. That's where we add the yeast. The yeast convert the sugar we made in the cook into alcohol. Then that fermented mash, about 9 to 10% alcohol, goes in the still. We'll distill the alcohol off. We talked about that, but what's left in that pot now is spent mash or stillage or backset. Lots of different names for it, but essentially it's just devoid of or less than 0.5% alcohol. And if we've done our job, we've removed most of the carbohydrate from it, turned it into alcohol. So it's just a fairly acidic, high protein, high fiber, high fat source of nutrition for something. We'll keep a little bit for sour mashing, and we add a little bit to our next batch for yeast health. I've actually got a little barrel of it out back right now that the cafe is going to be picking up. They do some bread and stuff with that, and then some dog treats, I think, still probably.
Yeah.
The dogs love it. 1 part mash, 1 part peanut butter, 1 part flour, and put it on a cookie cutter, and they'll eat the dog out of it.
Yeah.
The bulk of our stillage goes to a local cattle farmer, pig farmer.
Okay.
Dudash Farms. He feeds it to his pigs. If a guest or a customer of his wants a grain-finished cow, he can do that too. I think most of those cows are grass-fed. But if you want to, fatten one up.
We do have an item on the menu at the cafe.
Thank
that's
you
got
for helping us close that
the
loop.
beef in there. Yeah, so some of it is
some of the
fed to
sausage
the cattle.
too, right?
And, yeah.
Yeah. So
and then they've got spent grain buns that they make from that. So it's a really, really neat, cool way that we're able to bring that full circle.
I'm so happy.
It starts with Chuck, runs through here. You filter what you need out of it, and then it goes on over to either to the farmer or the cafe, and they're able to use it and keep it going. And so it's a great way to be sustainable. I mean, that's how people in this part of the country lived for centuries.
Right.
I mean, you're going to use everything you've got to the maximum fullest potential that you can because you didn't have the luxury of just going and buying more. A lot of it you're going to make yourself, so you're going to use whatever you've got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I love it. I love it. I'm such a geek right now with sustainability, and we're doing a great job, but I'm starting to get itchy and want to do better.
Yeah.
And I don't, aside from just, putting balloons on the cow's rear end to catch the gas. I don't know how that's going to work out, but
we also use so when you open a jar to sample it out, you can't reuse that jar, right?
We can't.
Not allowed to. So we send it over to the pottery, and they turn it into a beautiful piece of art, fusing it with a piece of pottery.
Right.
So another way that we're just taking what we've got and reusing that and finding maybe even better purpose for it, So we're not filling the landfill with a bunch of empty bottles, empty jars. We're trying to reuse those and find a way to make them useful.
Yeah, upscaling the spent mash into more something else that we can use for fuel for us. But using these byproducts, jars, cardboard, spent mash, and turning them into more co-products, and there's a lot of energy to be squeezed out of this stuff. And
these are things that have evolved over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
As you've ramped up production, done more, business has gotten better, and everybody's learning more about the process, I would imagine, what we can do.
Yeah.
And so all of you makers get together all the time. You're always talking to one another, and, what can I do with this? What can you do with that? And it's inspiration for new products, but also what flavors. So you have a few flavors that you make here in Old Forge.
Yeah, we came out with, right out of the gate, we wanted to kind of separate ourselves from some of the other moonshine distilleries in the industry, and one way we did that was with some unique flavors like coffee, French toast, chocolate. So I love coffee, I love Kahlua, I love White Russian. So that was a no-brainer. It's like, all right, let's make a Kahlua on steroids. A coffee liqueur on steroids. Let's jack the proof up and make it, awesome.
Yeah.
Lose the hazelnut. Let's just coffee. So that one, there's our chocolate is kind of modeled loosely off of the chocolate cake from the cafe. That was a fun one. There was, I think it's a waffle or French toast or some sort of a recipe over here at the Old Mill restaurant. Is just this massive, delicious breakfast. And French toast would be good, we're not going to just release a caramel right now. Let's see how it is with maple. Let's see. The original version of it had a bacon wash in it. It's too much.
Really?
I was going for a breakfast, man.
Yeah.
How do I do that? Squeeze it into a jar and make it alcohol, have alcohol in it. So we lost the bacon wash, though. It was too much.
Too much.
It's a little too much. But now that's coming around. So maybe I chose poorly 10 years ago. Bacon, fat washed alcohol.
You were way ahead of your time.
Yeah, maybe.
That's it. That's what it was.
I guess
and you're also inspired by flavors at the Candy Kitchen, right?
Candy Kitchen, of course.
Yeah.
Creamery.
Yeah.
We got that line of rum-based cream liqueur. So let me back up. So one way we wanted to separate ourselves was different flavors of moonshine, but also we wanted to get outside of the moonshine category quickly. Not abandon it.
Essential part of the business.
Essential is probably an understatement. Yeah, that's who we are.
Yeah.
But we also wanted to make sure that we got outside of that category and started to express ourselves as a craft distillery.
Right.
And we did that with vodka, bourbon, our rum, our harvest gin, and that cream liqueur line. So so the inspiration for that was just a hot lap through Wayne's Creamery over there. That looks good. Wonder how that'll taste melted and boozy. So you have vanilla ice cream, peanut butter, banana split, chocolate coconut. So those are just complete ripoffs.
And the pralines. Pralines from the Candy
cream.
Kitchen, yeah.
Yeah, we sat on that one for a while. That was
probably my favorite of those cream liqueurs.
That's vanilla ice cream, and it's good. It did well in a competition recently.
I made truffles with it before, and it's pretty good as a truffle.
And you
get that praline flavor.
But if I gave you this tennis shoe, you could turn it into something delicious.
I do like to cook with our spirits over here, so I play around with things, and I'll put it in a cookie, a brownie, a pie, candy, marshmallows.
I know. I wish you'd start putting
I'll
fried
put it
chicken
in
and steaks. I'm a savory guy. You give me some salt, dude.
We'll come up with a fried chicken moonshine, and we'll talk about it.
Right. Yeah.
If you can do bacon, you can do fried chicken.
That's right. Yeah.
So over the last 10 years, things have evolved. Things have changed. What's something that you've learned in the last 10 years that you're just like, that blew my mind? I had no idea. Never would have thought that.
Oh my gosh.
Being here 10 years later, is that?
Yeah, I'm not good with calendars. So I
We
can't
kept
plan
you
next
around.
week. Yeah, the fact that that's a different discussion too to find. Anyway, so the fact that I wasn't kicked to the curb, after year 0.5.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I don't know, Jimmy. I think probably, you hear a lot of people talk about attention to detail and the devil's in the details and stuff like that. I think for me it was slowing down over the past 10 years. We came out of the gate really fast,
Really hard.
hard, really excited. Still am.
Yeah.
Clearly, I can't stop with this. Sorry. I think distilling now with more intent, slowing down, breathing, and just enjoying the ride more, I think. I don't want to sound cliche, but that's really where after 10 years of being here and 10 years of, life, it's just, just like, man.
You know a little bit more now than you did then.
I hope.
Yeah. And
hopefully, forgot enough to where I'm just dumb now.
Without giving away any company secrets, what's next? What do you want to see in the next 10 years?
Oh my goodness, how much time we have?
Yeah.
So much. And of course, I'm looking at this entire Old Mill Square through my lens, and I understand that everybody's not looking out that lens, Jimmy.
Yeah.
But I would love to see us grow. We've exploited about every square inch we can in the name of making good alcohol. I'd like to see us grow more.
If you're not growing, you're stagnant.
Yeah.
And if you're stagnant.
Yeah, you're dying. Definitely growth. As far as what's next for us, I think the next, I guess I can definitely talk about it now, but we've been here for 10 years. We've been operating for 10 years. We've been aging 5-year-old bourbon, Tennessee bourbon whiskey that we're pretty excited about, that we're going to release pretty quietly in your store within the next little bit. I don't want to put a timestamp on that because I don't want to, be honest with you, I don't want to be held to it. I don't want to be told.
Right. Yeah, there you go.
Get it done. But yeah, so that's exciting. And pulling barrel samples right now, pulling barrel samples of our Tennessee whiskey. That's exciting. We have some that's 5 years old. In my opinion, we need a little bit more time in that barrel for that Tennessee whiskey, but I'm confident enough in a couple of barrels of bourbon that we have stowed away that we can do a little release on this.
Yeah. Another great.
So that's exciting.
Another great story to tell, and you all tell stories with this too. So you mentioned Cyclone Jim.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I know a little bit about Cyclone Jim, but what does that mean to you?
So to us, we're talking about the Angel Share. Let me back up to that, and we'll start telling that story. So we're dumping these barrels. They're 17 years old. Very mature, very rare whiskey.
Yeah.
Tennessee bourbon. The Angels, God, they're thirsty. So we're talking about a 53-gallon barrel. That's how much alcohol you typically put in a whiskey barrel.
Yeah.
And over time, in this particular climate, you're looking at, anywhere from 4 to 8% evaporation per year. I don't know what all the math is. I don't have enough fingers and toes, but it's a lot after 17 years. And we just dumped some and bottled it. We got probably 8 or 9 gallons per barrel that we dumped out of 53.
Wow.
So when you talk about these mature whiskeys that have these age statements on them that are 8, 10, 12, 14, and you're paying an astronomical amount for them, it's not just because the number's high, but it's what the number represents, and that's a lot of evaporation. That's a lot of time in and out of the wood. The whiskey's great. It's phenomenal. Very smooth. But there's just not a lot of it you're getting back. That's Cyclone Jim liquid. Now, the story that we tell with it, it involves the Pigeon River pottery over here. I guess back in the 40s, you're better suited to speak on the names and dates, but there's been a series of horses. Somebody even thinks there might have been a mule at one time. But they all bore the name. They all had that name, Cyclone Jim, that walked in a circle and spun the pottery. What do you call it? What's the term?
Pug in the clay.
Pug in the clay.
Pug in the clay.
I thought that's
Mixing
what it was
that clay.
but I thought that's it.
Walking in a circle, he worked up a cyclone.
Right.
That's where he got his name.
So there's a tulip-shaped snifter.
Okay.
That's good for nosing spirits. This is how we get by without drinking all day long. We just smell. It concentrates the aroma. They made it out of, clay somewhere. I'm not sure exactly the terms, but they made
it out of pottery.
They made it out of a pottery to go with a Cyclone Jim gift set. It's a fun little story to be able to tell and talk about the horse and the series of horses and how each horse had its own personality and its own ins and outs. But each barrel that we dump is a single barrel, that has its own character.
Yeah.
Just like the horses.
Yeah. Well, the last one, from what I've read, the last Cyclone Jim had quite a bit of character.
And, it's probably why he's the last one. We're done with this.
Well, he got loose and got into Mrs. Ferguson's flowers. And when she went out with a broom to chase him away, he chased her back. And she told Mr. Ferguson, that's it. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. So that's the story I've read. That's what I've heard. So the last one had a little bit of fire in him.
Yeah,
and so
they used every part of him.
So did you put a little fire in that Cyclone Jim?
We're bottling it at 110 proof.
Okay.
So it's an overproof bourbon, by typical bourbon standards. A lot of those are bottled at 80 proof, but we went 110. Not necessarily because we wanted to jive with the lap. What? I'm sorry. What happened to the guy, to the horse?
Well, the last one, I think they just put him out to pasture. We'll just put it that way. I really don't know.
Made a rug out of it, made some glue.
I just know that they said that.
Hopefully it's pot roast.
It's kind of like, not to spoil anybody's childhoods, but Lassie was more than one dog over the years, from what I've heard, and Cyclone Jim, like you said, was more than one horse. So the last one, he went to work somewhere else.
He was allowed to pursue different career opportunities.
And at that point, they were pugging the clay inside with a machine. So he was really not even so much there to do a job other than be a tourist attraction.
The original, in fact, right?
Yeah, a lot of families would come by just to see Cyclone Jim.
So that's a fun little partnership or collaboration we've been able to do with the pottery. And if I didn't mention it enough, but it's that pottery snifter. Yeah. It's a 375 milliliter bottle of that Cyclone Jim. It's got a little piece of onion skin paper that we printed a beautiful story on there about the pottery and we talk about the horse and It's a good thing to set on your bar back. It's a good thing to buy 2 of.
There you go.
Drink one and
perfect.
Put the other one behind you.
Keep one up.
Yeah.
And with some of the other stories, you've got Clear Moonshines is named after the Miller, right? So what's the name?
The Miller's Blend.
The Miller's Blend.
Yeah,
so you're telling stories there.
That's a wheated moonshine. So 80%, as much corn as is in the Rocky Top corn whiskey and much corn. We're doing the inverse there and jacking the wheat. It's really smooth. And
you've got one to honor the lightning bugs that people flock to the mountains here to see every June.
We do. White lightning bug.
White lightning bug.
Fittingly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that one is, that's just a tweak on our backwoods cut. It's an overproof moonshine, bottled just how it comes off the still. So for us, our Hearts collection for a whiskey or a white moonshine like that is typically 135 to 140 proof. I think our backwoods cut right now, it's super limited. So
so it's a limited release, in time for the fireflies.
Yeah, and it's 140 proof. So
wow, and I heard the label glows.
It does, yeah.
So
if you squint and put it in a real dark room, you got a little bit of a treat there. That way you don't lose your jar at night.
Yeah, so lots of really cool stories that you all tell here. And you mentioned the proof. So where do you start and where do you end on the proofs on the products that you all make?
Flavored moonshines, things that are let's back up. Cream liqueurs, I guess, if we're going to start from the beginning.
Okay.
Those are 34 proof.
Okay.
Those are great mixers for, coffee and hot chocolate, and you can turn them into ice cream.
Sure.
We'll tell you how. Essentially, 1 part cream liqueur, 2 parts milk, put it in an ice cream maker, and make yourself a soft serve.
There you go.
It'll end up around, 10% alcohol.
Yeah.
So, like a real strong beer. Next move there is the flavored moonshine line. Our fun flavors, and those are 60 proof or 30% alcohol. This is liqueurs and your favorite cocktails or replacements, the coffee, like I said. 100 proof is the next stop, the clear moonshines. All of those clears, the unaged corn, the Rocky Top corn whiskey, the Distiller's Blend, which is a rye dominant moonshine, the Miller's Blend we talked about, wheat dominant, a Maltster's Blend right now, which is malt, barley dominant. So if people were to distill a beer, I guess. Those are all 100 proof. And then, like we talked about, the Cyclone Gem's 110. The backwoods cut right now is 138. It's a little sister or cousin, the White Lightning Bug, which is we're going to release probably in the June-ish time frame, is 140. Yeah. And I think that's as high as where I can't keep up, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're always doing something. The Harvest Gin is 86 proof.
So there's a little something for everybody.
Yes,
so if you just need a little,
as long as you're 21.
Flavor with it,
Anybody over 21.
Over 21, yes, absolutely. We want to make sure, again, if the government's listening, that we are adhering to all the rules.
And we're
always.
Bring your drinking license.
Yeah.
When you come. But so we have something for everybody. And I say, if you don't like something in here, you're probably wrong. I know the guest is supposed to be always supposed to be right, but not in that case.
Well, Keener, I think we've probably taken up enough of your time. I hear the store's open, things are happening.
The creak of the floor / ceiling behind us.
Yeah, they're dancing on the ceiling already.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let you go, but thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for the opportunity, brother.
Always a pleasure talking to you.
You too.
And folks, thank you very much for watching. We will see you next time.
You've been listening to Foothills of the Smokies, a podcast that celebrates life, heritage, and stories from in and around the Smoky Mountains. Foothills of the Smokies is proudly sponsored by the Old Mill in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, where tradition and taste come together. Our executive producer is Laurie Faulkner, sound engineering by John Stewart, and I'm your host, Jimmy Profit. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd love for you to leave us a rating, share your thoughts, and let us know what you'd like to hear next. Thank you for joining us here in the Foothills. Until next time, take care, and we'll see you soon.